first of all, let me just gauge your general feeling. How did you feel after this loss to the Philadelphia Eagles? Because it feels like a lot of the Metroplex, in trying to gauge the reactions, seemed to kind of handle it pretty well.
It might be like the copium. And so that was actually part of the emotional ride for me, was wondering, am I just trying to cope with this? Am I just trying to barter? Am I at that part in the process? But I mean, they had a bunch of house money, and, I think the second half was so encouraging. I know people hate moral victories and things like that, but I mean, they found a way for 4 weeks, and, the ride had to end. I mean, we were Cinderella. We were, on the dance floor getting low. You know what I mean? We went to an after party and had snacks and hors d'oeuvres. We went to Whataburger at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay, the carriage turned back into a pumpkin. So what? We had a great time. Now it's time to rest up and get ready for the next one.
I like the way you painted a hell of a picture. I like that, RJ. And let me just co-sign with you on that, because the second half, because they showed some fight, and it was like, okay, this wasn't a mirage. I see us building off of this. In other words, Philadelphia didn't expose the Dallas Cowboys. They just got ahead.
I mean, I think if anything, I don't know what the opposite of exposed, imposed maybe, but they offered an opportunity for us to see something. Jason Garrett pissed a lot of people off with the fly eagle fly thing at the beginning. And I hate doing this because it sounds like stepping on Garrett. And he's a wonderful person. I mean, you guys know that. But, obviously things went the way they did. And all I kept thinking of as the second half, little comeback was mounting, was, man, this would have never happened. I really thought, under Garrett, they would have said, hey, guys, look, we won $5,000 at this table. Let's go home. Let's cash out. Let's, live to fight another day. Who cares about the second half? We'll go beat Detroit. We'll go beat Chicago. We'll get to 6-2. That's better than we thought it was going to be. And I love that McCarthy was like, to hell with that. We could still win this thing. And I know they didn't. And so, and I want to say I enjoy Eagles fans rubbing it in, because that's the way it should be. It's a rivalry. It's fun. But it does feel like it was a much more meaningful thing on that side than it was on this one, just because, it was never going to work. You were never going to win that game, turning the ball over and spotting them such short fields. And, the magic carpet ride had to end.
Now, RJ, in talking about the way that this team battled, one of the people that deserves a little bit of credit was Kellen Moore, in the way that there were some adjustments very obviously at halftime. How much do you see those things kind of, detailing what we might see going forward from this offense? Or how much of that was just, a result of the predicament that they faced in that moment?
I do think that a part of it is not Philly playing prevent, but Philly understanding, look, we got this big lead, right? We can back off a little bit. This is about winning the game. But I do think that Kellen deserves his flowers to a certain degree, because I mean, those, they put together big time 90-yard touchdown drives against, the Cowboys defense gets a lot of love, rightfully so, but the Eagles right now have a better defense by DVOA than Dallas does. I mean, that is not an easy thing to do. Eagles fans are quick to point out that Lane Johnson, obviously left the game and hope he's all right, but their defense was just fine. Their defense was exactly who they wanted to be. And so I give Kellen a lot of credit for reacting and adjusting. That felt like and that's maybe part of what the big sort of wind in sails was like, okay, cool, Kellen, all right, you went in, you got on the ones and twos, and now look at where things are at. I don't know that he had a better second half all season long, even though they lost and even though they've won other games. It was such an instilling of hope performance, especially when Dak comes back. And I think that's what we're all hoping, is these 5 weeks have been an opportunity to learn, to kind of take this focus group and realize what works, what they were doing that wasn't working, and take it into the future. I mean, they're kind of starting the season, right? It's mid-October. You guys are wearing hoodies. It's already that time of year, and they're just now kind of getting ready to start.
I like the way the tight ends have been playing without Dalton Schultz out there. I'm not hating on Dalton Schultz. I'm just saying he's not been available. And what I've seen is, they better use him a lot more. But there's a other side of that coin. There's a lot of people who feel like that Dak's got this great chemistry with Dalton Schultz, and we may see more out of Dalton Schultz. Where do you lie on this argument?
I agree with both. So I'm here to ride the fence and please everybody. Right? I want all the love. But I do think I think when Dak Prescott's under center, CeeDee Lamb is much more dangerous. And so you have to devote a lot more attention to him. And that opens things up for Dalton Schultz. And so that's not, again, all due respect to Cooper Rush, but that's not the case. I mean, the science, the math, the calculus changes a lot when the quarterback changes. And so, and beyond that, to your point, Dak does have a great relationship with Dalton Schultz. I mean, great security blanket, great, last resort, check down, dump off, whatever you want to call it, option. And so and that's where it did feel to me, not that the Cowboys punted on the game. I don't subscribe to that at all. But and I'm not saying that Dalton Schultz was not unable to play in that game, but it did kind of feel like they were like, okay, like you guys remember when you were kids and it was like, oh man, grandparents are coming over, whoever's coming over, clean the house, get everything ready. It kind of felt like that. Like, okay, we need Dalton ready for Detroit. We need. I don't know this for a fact. This is now me putting on my tinfoil hat, but I had not seen James Washington at a road game. He was at this game warming up with Dak Prescott pregame. Why? Like, why make the trip just to warm up? You know what I mean? That was a little, hey, James, enjoy the trip, enjoy the city, get a cheesesteak, whatever. But it does kind of feel like, everything is being lined up a little bit for Dak to come back and for everything to be right in place so that they can take off and start the season, like we said, anew.
Man, I love what you're putting down there. I'm really interested because you mentioned CeeDee Lamb and, the way in which CeeDee Lamb with Dak Prescott assists Dalton Schultz, and that leans into something I've been thinking about and kind of been watching all season, which is the way that a wide receiver one, or a true wide receiver one shifts a defense for an offense, and how it's the teams without them, you can see the clear difference in what happens. Do you feel like CeeDee Lamb does that for this team? Do you feel like CeeDee Lamb is a force that forces defense to shift the way that they play? Or is that maybe asking a little too much?
Probably not right now, but that's okay. I mean, and I know we're really quick to give CD the extra benefit of the doubt, but to be fair to the guy, I mean, half of his career with the Cowboys has been played without Dak Prescott,
right.
And he's found ways to be productive in spite of that, and so. I mean, even, there's been so many times. Remember last year, it was finally like, whenever it was like, oh man, Amari, CD, and Gallup are all playing together finally for an entire game because Gallup got hurt in the opener.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're, okay, like, let's see it. Let's see the offense that they drew up on some whiteboard, chalkboard, or hologram, whatever, they got going on there at the Star. And this was the plan, right? Dak, CeeDee, Gallup. All right, Dalton Schultz. Right. Like we haven't gotten to see that yet. And so until we do, I do think it's fair to give them some time and some leniency. And I think that extends to every player individually. So I don't know that it's fair to be like, well, CeeDee's not drawing triple teams. Like he must suck. No, I mean, his quarterback is a big factor in that consideration.
Excellent points. Now, speaking of wide receivers, earlier this afternoon, Bobby Belt, our Cowboys insider, and Gavin Dawson, the general of the G-Bag Nation, were talking about Odell Beckham Jr., OBJ. All summer long when people were saying, hey, the Cowboys should kick the tires on OBJ, I said, no, they're not going to be good enough and he won't be back in time to help them. Well, lo and behold, the Cowboys are now 4-2, and I'm like, where do you stand on a possible OBJ to Dallas thought?
I mean, we're getting to that time, right, where it's starting to make more sense, right? Because to your point, it was, when James Washington got hurt, it was like, well, this dude can't help you right now.
Right.
That was the big problem. I mean, I think they're fine, and that's not like in a, we like our guys, pie, whatever mean way. I really do think they're fine, and I am interested to see what they designed, how it bears itself out. So I'm kind of, I want to see some more data before I make a decision one way or the other. But that being said, I'm always for go for it, right? Like at this point, you have the cap space. You have no idea what, injuries lurk around the corner. And, you don't want it to be too late. You're right now, I don't know, I had them 7th in my power rankings at blogontheboys.com, but whatever, you're a top 5, 6, 7 team, and I love Cooper Rush. You guys do too, but, and you're about to make a significant improvement at the most important position in the game. Like the time is now. You're here. Like this is why we lift all them weights, right? Like you are here now. It is so, think about how long we have to go to get to next, year's week 7. We got to live Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and Valentine's Day and the Masters and, the Little League World Series. It's a long wait. Like you're here now. Go for it.
Man, and the way that they've been doing, the way people be doing it, we're going to be living next Christmas come January because they love getting these things out early. Regardless, one of the things that obviously, if we're going to nitpick nits with this defense, it's going to be the run stopping ability. And I'm asking this question is there a way to change that, or is this going to be one of those weaknesses that you just have to deal with as every team has a weakness in a salary capped sport?
I think it's partly that, but I do also think, have they played with a big lead? You know what I mean? Have they put teams in must-pass situations? And that's just been part of, they've been an episode of Chopped, right? It's been like, okay, here is cottage cheese, here is 3 lollipops, and here is a pack of spearmint gum. Make something. And so, you can't make Thanksgiving dinner out of that, right? But you can still make something good, apparently. And so, I do think that changes. I do, Detroit obviously can run the ball, but if you put them in a 14-0 hole, you put them in the spot that Philadelphia put you, you change things. You change, their game plan. You force them to adapt to play to your, environment the way you want to rock. And so, Dak Prescott coming back gives you the opportunity to do that.
Oh, and one more thing before we let you go here. One thing I've been discussing, or we discussed earlier, is just the way that these penalties seem to crop up in your biggest games. Are you concerned about these penalties? I'm trying to ward these off. I think we've had enough conversations for you to know my brain tends to skew negative at times. So I'm trying to ward off the negativity of, oh man, is this a team that's just going to get penalties when they play good teams?
Reggie, you're a Manchester United fan, so you're conditioned to feel this way.
That's
nature.
fine.
I am too. I'm
game recognized game, right?
It's a tough life, but I'm a big rules of engagement person, and so I know we're always not really. Honestly, I love lots of sitcoms, but that's just not my cup of tea. I will watch most sitcoms, but anyway. But that being the case, right? Okay, fine. Dante Fowler's penalty, we all agree is bad. I know people will sit here and be like, well, Micah is unsportsmanlike, Trayvon's unsportsmanlike. What are the rules of engagement? What are they calling, right? You got to know. You got to understand, you call it fair, unfair, whatever. I live my life by something called the purple pants rule. If y'all's job, 105 through the fan, love y'all. If they told y'all, man, you cannot wear purple pants to the show tonight, that would be a stupid rule. But if y'all signed some contracts that said, hey, we're willing to do all this, whatever, for this job, and then you wore purple pants, it's not the rule that's stupid. You're the stupid one for breaking the rule that you knew. So you got to understand what officials are calling and don't give them anything. And when you do, it sucks. But I don't know that it happens more in big games. I just think that it tends to feel epic when it happens. And that's usually all the time. But you got to understand they have a lot of data to support those ideas, what to lean into, what to not lean into, what they can get away with. And so you just got to know better. But emotions obviously get in the way.
That's RJ. Oh, you got something? All right, that's RJ Ochoa blogging the boys. I was about to say, I was about to let CA say something, but
I do have to say something.
Now I got to find a way to wrap up the segment.
No, I can say something here. Let me say something because I was going to ask about
You know what? I was really just stuck on the purple pants idea, and I was like, would I be cool with that as a rule?
RJ, here's my question for you. Now that we've seen what can slow down Micah Parsons, and that's the RPO, do you expect other teams to start whipping that blueprint out?
I think the teams that are equipped to be able to do it, right? So, thankfully the Cowboys don't have to play Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen this year or Patrick Mahomes or, I know Daniel Jones is mobile and things like that, but as far as their schedule and our concerns this year, that's a next year problem, right? We'll worry about that next year. We'll worry about the new Christmas tree next year. Just throw this one out, put it out on the curb. The garbage truck will take it. I'm not worried about that until Christmas Eve, ironically.
Yep.
But that is a concern. But you can't be flawless. Micah Parsons is one of the most talented athletes in the world, and it's a very difficult thing for him to stop. That should contextualize how. Give the Eagles their props. They're really good at something that is worth being really good at.